Sunday, 9 a.m. I notice my phone's getting a little more notifications than usual. I assume that some clip's going viral or something, so I roll over and go to bed. 30 minutes later, I wake up and there's even more notifications. These time they're coming from my CTO and my team. Finally decide to get up and take a look at what's going on. I have a bunch of DMs from various users of UploadThing, as well as the group chat and the server chat support, all just going off nonstop. Turns out we're in the middle of our first major outage for UploadThing. How'd we get here? What happened? How do we fix it? I want to show y'all what a production outage looks like, from the cause to the response to how we manage it, but most importantly, how we fix it and make sure these things don't happen again going forward. First and foremost, I need to thank my team for working as hard as they did to tackle all of these things. And also, huge shout out to PlanetScale. Yes, they sponsor the channel. They have nothing to do with the creation of this video other than Sam Lambert, the CEO, personally helping us out in order to get our throughput down to somewhere more reasonable. So, what happened? This chart here is the total files uploaded on UploadThing. You might notice something suspicious. And on this day, we went from 190,000 files to 270,000 files. That happened because we had a new power user. I am pumped with this user. He's doing awesome things with UploadThing, building cool stuff in and around it. And he's been incredibly helpful working with us throughout, both because he indirectly caused the outage, but also because he was pushing the limits of what was possible with our service. And it's really cool working with somebody who's this excited about what we're building, so much so that they stress tested our service and found all of the places we need to be optimizing more. Normally, we see about 4,000 to 5,000 file uploads per day. And as you see here, that number's been growing pretty consistently. But this jump from 4,000 to 80,000, specifically 40,000 of these were in 30 minutes. 10x our daily throughput in a 30-minute window was not something we had handled. We got ousted by one user going really hard. And yes, we should be able to handle this. And thankfully, all of our infrastructure is prepared for it. But no matter how good your infrastructure is, bad design decisions will always bite you. And you might not know when. And there's a couple stupid mistakes we had made that caused this to be such a brutal spike. I wanted to also talk about the business side of an outage and how we work on this with our customers. And it's super important to be transparent about this. Thankfully, the person who had this crazy level of throughput was an active member of our Discord and immediately let us know what he was doing and that he was starting to see issues. And this was so well aligned with the other issues we heard users reporting that it seemed almost obvious that this level of throughput was the root cause. And once I went into PlanetScale, it was pretty clear. So I immediately went out of my way to own the issue and make sure people knew that we were on it. I know it was a Sunday and early in the morning for us, but it was important that people knew that we see this, we're on it, and we're going to fix it and make sure it doesn't happen in the future. So I reached out to all the people who were affected. I made it very clear in the public Discord, hey, we're experiencing issues right now, should be fixed no later than this point. We're rolling out changes. Here's what went wrong. Here's how we're fixing it. And also reaching out to the incredible user and customer who threw 40,000 files up in an hour. And we've been talking since. He actually made a pull request fixing our Cloudflare support because he wanted to apologize for causing an outage. So yeah, our customers are incredible, which is a huge part of why it wasn't much work managing the business side here. Everybody was super understanding and kind and worked with us throughout. And I think they get it. Like, we're a new service that's growing really fast, faster than any of us ever would have expected. And for a little bit of bad code to cause a 15-minute spike of bad requests, it's bad. It's really bad. And I'm not proud of it. To have our first blip in our nines of reliability isn't wonderful, but I'm still proud of how we handled this overall. And I'm pumped that we have the awesome team that we have and the incredible customers who understand that these things happen. Going forward, I'm hoping that we can get to the point where we have like a status page that makes it clearer when we're having issues and what those issues are. But honestly, the speed that we're moving at, it'll be really hard to maintain that with all the different services and pieces. So going forward, our main focus is transparency and resilience. Make it so these things are less likely to happen and be really transparent when they do. Because no service, no matter how great it is going to be 100% free of outages. And it's important for us to understand and expect that and set realistic expectations with our customers going forward. Right at 9 a.m., throughput was insane. And we saw our P99s getting as high as 500 milliseconds and our P95s in like the 250 range. With all of the tools PlanetScale gives us, debugging these types of things becomes significantly easier. And immediately, there's something suspicious here. There's a shitload of query time. Like, that's in milliseconds. So let's do quick math. So that's seconds. So divided by 60, that's minutes. Divided by 60, that's hours. That's 38 hours of compute in like a 30-minute window. You can also see that the rose red here is an absolutely insane number. So what caused that? Why are we reading 410 million rows to only return 165,000? This is the query that runs when a user is requesting pre-signed post URL from our service. So this comes from the developer's backend to our backend, and it uses the API key both to identify if this user is authenticated to do this or not, and also to identify which application is theirs. So this request needs the API key in order to figure out which app this is and where we should put the file and if this is a valid user at all. We had indexed this table on the ID and on the app ID. You can see in our DB schema, if we go down to the API key, we have a unique key index here that I added 3 days ago, because before we didn't. We only had the app ID indexed. What does that mean? Well, if you're not familiar with database indexes, it's basically a glossary to let people quickly find the specific place they need to be in the database. We shouldn't have to go through every single row in the database to find the one that matches. Ideally, we should have that hash mapped somewhere to point us to the exact right row based on that key sorted. And that's effectively what indexing is. It's a small separate table that points you directly to the right place in the bigger table so that you can do lookups significantly faster. And we didn't have a key that we absolutely needed to have on our table, which caused a lot of problems. Problems to the orders of magnitude of 38 hours of query time. So now imagine each of these queries has to go through the entire table of all of the keys and all of the apps inside of UploadThing every time a user uploads. The fact that we had no problems for so long is incredible. But when all of a sudden we're getting thousands of queries per second that all require all of those rows to be scanned, we get hosed. And you could see pretty quickly, as soon as we added the index and the boost on planet scale, once these were all added, the speed at which that blue line went down is insane. And since then, things have been relatively flat. I know this chart might not look great, but that's the P99. The P99 has a lot of additional queries that are heavier for a lot of reasons. But if I turn off the P99, the P95 doesn't go over 37 milliseconds anymore, which is a totally reasonable response time. I am pumped we were able to handle this as quickly as we did. Obviously, having spotty uploads in this window was unpleasant. But again, when we look at the P95, you see this dropped a ton. There was a little bit of a spike here, but if I recall, this spike was another query on our dashboard that was having problems. Yeah, it's the query on our dashboard, and we have a file query that isn't well optimized because we are indexing by app ID, but we're not indexing by file size because it's nullable. We have a pull request up that's going to fix that to handle this one additional edge case. But overall, we fixed this. Performance is significantly better. The service has no longer regressed, and we know way, way more about where our rough edges are. If it wasn't for the quality of the tools inside of PlanetScale, this would have been miserable to debug. The fact that we have this UI where I can sort by which queries have the highest P99 latency and see which queries are reading the most rows, and just having this UI to quickly identify where problems are and debug them, and more importantly, having the boost feature, which allows for specific queries to be cached and keyed individually so that you don't even have to hit the database and to run these queries in the first place. This workflow has made finding and fixing these issues so much easier. And I'm incredibly thankful both for the PlanetScale team for building this product, but also the PlanetScale CEO, Sam, for helping us out a ton. Yes, PlanetScale is where our failure happened, but the reason why is our bad code and our bad database design was able to scale to thousands of users and hundreds of thousands of files uploaded without any issues. And when we had them, because of the insane throughput, identifying where the issue was coming from was significantly easier than I would have ever expected. My experience using PlanetScale has been incredible. And yes, they sponsored the channel, but I would like to remind you once again, they're not sponsoring this video and they're not giving us free PlanetScale. I'm paying for our PlanetScale service because, again, I'm really, really happy with the product. These are the things that used to stress me out a ton. Like when we had outages like this at Twitch, hoping and praying we had the right metric somewhere, logging which queries were slower or faster, made debugging this stuff incredibly scary. And man, I'm so thankful that the quality of this product is where it is and that I can identify these problems as fast as I can now. I'm sure other tools have things like this, but I personally have not had this good of a debugging experience trying to figure out where the fire hose is coming from that's causing our app to go down. So what about you? Have you had outages like this? How did you debug them? What's your process for figuring out what's causing your service to go down? Obviously, I rely a lot on analytics tools and logging, error reporting things like Axiom, Highlight, and even Vercel's own analytics and monitoring tools. But having something like this stuff built into PlanetScale is such a huge win. And yeah, this basically is a PlanetScale ad now, even though they're where the outage happened. Regardless, we appreciate them a ton. Appreciate you a ton for sticking by through this. If you want to learn more about error handling and outages and how to make sure those reports actually get to you in the first place, put in a video all about that in the corner here. Thank you guys as always. Really appreciate y'all. Peace, nerds.